Hello and welcome to another video. Let's look at Gladiator. Let's deconstruct some presets in Tone 2's Gladiator. It's a crazy old synth. It's yonks old. I've been upgrading this version for many years now, and I'm surprised I didn't do a video on this before because it is a very interesting synth in terms of the oscillators. Oscillators are fascinating. They aren't like other oscillators and in other synthesizers you might come across. They're kind of like wavetable oscillators in that they have a time factor. They can capture harmonic information over time. So as the documentation describes, they've kind of done analysis of pianos and strings and things that you then kind of would normally sample and dump into a sampler, but instead they analyze them in a kind of Fourier form, an FFT kind of style, and extract harmonic content from the files and then generate another kind of file, and that's what the synthesizer reads back. So rather than when you press high notes, the sample speeds up. When you press low notes, it slows down. You can describe the travel through the sound with things like these speed knobs and this kind of thing. It's pretty nutty. And yeah, like I say, it's got a unique sound of its own. This harmonic content morphing is not like any other synthesizer oscillator you will have heard. He's done a good job of developing something quite unique. People say it's been perfect for pads over the years. I used it for basses and multiple times, and it's very powerful. It has a lot of different possibilities. So I kind of want to look at some of those in this preset deconstruction video. First of all, let's just have a look at the configuration of the synthesizer, the routing. How does the sound go through the synthesizer? I mean, it's fairly standard in the sense that it's oscillators going into a filter. Here's the oscillators going into this filter area up here, and out of the filter it goes into a short effect chain, which then goes into a delay line which you can feed back through the effect chain. That's an interesting thing you don't often see in synthesizers. I like that addition. And we've got the usual suspects of modulation sources, LFOs, step LFOs, and envelopes, that kind of thing over here. A couple of free running LFOs over here as well. We have the modulation source here. Let's just start up here quickly. So we've got each of these, it kind of looks like two oscillators, but within each of these two oscillators, we have another two kind of wave files basically, which are blended together. This, you can see up here, there's an organ sound loaded in this particular visual that I've captured. And that gets modified sometimes in certain ways here. And then you can combine it with the other waveform here. And these combine algorithms use different techniques to bring the sounds together. Sometimes it's just an add. Sometimes it's a even harmonics only kind of stuff. It's kind of interesting. And we have another little modulation kind of modifier stage after the addition of those, or the combination of the two wave files, and another phase modulation phase here, phase here, which does mad things to the phase of the sound, can make it all very noisy or just crazy things, kind of pingy, sort of zappy sort of stuff. It does phase modulation. You'll know what it sounds like when we go to it. And that's the same. This whole oscillator has been duplicated here. There's another little section down here which describes, like I said earlier, the speed and the way that the oscillator travels through the harmonic content of the file. And we've got some sort of standard pitch stuff here, octaves and semitones, and the 4-man scale, which is an interesting thing because the harmonic content morphing kind of engine has a sonic picture of the sound, so you can adjust the harmonics but not lose the character of the sound. You can kind of shift it, make it smaller, make it bigger type thing, when you might do similar thing in a auto tune or a Melodyne, for example, on a vocal. And you've got this little mixing area down here where these two main oscillators, oscillator 1 and 2 is these two, and oscillator 3 and 4 is these two here. And we've got an AM mix as well, which is an amplitude modulation kind of algorithm, which just multiplies them together. And you get additional sidebands and harmonics depending on the kind of material you're putting through that little thing by default is turned down to 0. And there's one other little area here which triggers samples, which can be key tracked. They can be looped. There's a load of samples in here, things like noise and kind of guitar strikes and piano knocks and that kind of thing. It's quite good. Good for layering, perfect for layering, because it just adds a little kind of thing at the beginning of the sound. And all of that goes out into this stereo filter here, which is full of Marcus's crazy filters. This preset doesn't appear to have one loaded. That's okay. We'll look at some filters in a minute. And this is a normal filter, as you'd expect. We have its own envelope generator here that you can apply to the filter with this little send knob. Key tracking, velocity tracking, stereoizing, offsetting the frequency of the left and right filters, and the cutoff and resonance here. There's another little sort of filter distortion bit after the filter bit, which is like, so it goes out of the filter into this distortion module here, and then we go into the main amplitude modifier, the main amplitude envelope here. So this describes the main volume of the sound here. And then it goes out straight into this effect chain here, 2 effects here. These are full of like choruses and reverbs and some distortions, I think, that kind of thing here. They can be in parallel or serial, and then they go out, both of them, into an equalizer, which is very handy, a very basic equalizer, but very useful equalizer. And that goes into this delay line, which feeds back to the beginning of the effect chain again. And this is not something you'd see normally, like I said, in synthesizers. It's quite a cool addition. As usual, I try to keep to my standard of legend. So we've got encased in this blue squares here, we have the envelopes and LFOs that are available to us to modulate with. And yeah, these are powerful. This little LFO here, even though it's called an LFO, there are waveforms in it and functionalities that mean that it can behave like an envelope. So you've basically got 1, 2, 3, 4 envelopes to play with, which is quite nice, I think you'll find. This also does LFO stuff as well, synced, BPM, re-triggering, key tracking, this kind of thing. It's very, very powerful. And we've got 2 free running LFOs over here. We've also got a step LFO here, which is useful for creating your own LFO pattern in steps. You'll see how it gets used in a minute. It's kind of difficult to describe it here, but obviously each of these steps has a shape, and you can describe how long it is, and you can apply the pattern over time to parameters in the thing, in the rest of the synthesizer. This, encased in the purple area, is the kind of main modulation section. It's 2 screens, and it's kind of, source, target here, and that's that. That's what you need. There's the power down here in the modulation matrix. There's a couple of other areas over here which I suppose I would call global settings. And there's a unison, it's called sound section, but this bit here is all about the quality of the sound. So with unison mode activated on a setting that isn't just one, you can duplicate all the sort of oscillators and that kind of thing, and add more. So there's up to 4 duplications of the whole kind of oscillator setting that are spread around and stuff. It's like a massive unison setting, limited but powerful. And this extra little bit down here, the spirit mode, is also an interesting kind of power thing that I guess only can be implemented because of the way the oscillators have been coded and described in his development environment. This is kind of adds a little bit more interesting extra chaos to the sound, which we all like, to add interest to what might other be called stale or static noises. We've got this ARP here as well, this arpeggiator, which is surprisingly powerful. It's got an auto chord function, which kind of means you don't need to hold notes down in order to walk around a harmonic pattern. So I think with setting A, it's kind of running up a major scale of the white notes in C, for example. And obviously all that could be adjusted in various different ways. But this is like your basic arpeggiator here with gates and step times and the type of arpeggiator. We'll have a look at this during the investigations, the preset deconstruction. There's another little area here, small little discrete area called glide and pitch. And this invokes the kind of portamento style functionality you would find in regular synthesizers, and little pitch wheel, pitch bend, depth definition down here. So that's the whole synthesizer. There's a little bit of other stuff up here as well. There's a display for your values, microtuning, which kind of affects how the oscillators are retuned based on the notes that you're playing. It's kind of interesting. It does interesting stuff. I don't think many of the presets exploit that. It's kind of very subtle. And we've got the quality on high, and we can change the voice count over here. And here's the browser for the presets. Let's go ahead and see what's going on with this. So I've made a little song. This should... quite 80s in fashion. So there's a variety of noises here. We've got pads and arpeggios and some bells and a nice bass and some drums. But let's start with these drums because it's a good, nice, basic place to start. So what's this? This is a kick, as you can hear, and it's easily deconstructible. Let's see what we've got going on here. So we have... right at the end, as our normal process would go, let's take off the effect chain and see what's going on there. So we've got nothing in the delay feedback. That's good to know. We've got this little reverb set up here, which clearly is, we can put the mix back down to 0. That's doing quite a lot of the work in that, giving it a space, giving that kick a space to happen in. So we turn that off. What have we got left? I think we've got two parts of the sound. We can mute the oscillator 5 here, we can mute this little percussion noise here, and that's the kick. We've got the filter envelope here doing some pitch stuff because the filter is not in use here, so it can be allocated to other work. That's doing what you'd expect it to do, some good kick stuff, kick sine modulation, and then we mute that. And what have we got in the... and that's it. That's what a kick is, basically. It's a click and a thud. And other people might deconstruct a kick to be a few more things, but this is an effective enough kick, I think you'll find. The velocity is attached to the volume of the kick, sort of clicky noise, as you can see here. If we turn it down, it's at a fixed level, but I think this kick is doing, yeah, there are some modulations, some subtle, so you can probably not hear that change much, but it's definitely changing the sound. Trust. So let's just reset that back to normal again. That's the kick. It's nice, very simple. You don't have to use all the functions, obviously, in this very complicated, almost technical, lab-looking synthesizer. You can use it very simply and get lovely, simple noises like this out. So let's have a look at the snare. What have we got going on in here? So let's have a look at the reverb chain. It looks like the FX mix down here is down at 0. If we turn it up. Let's actually just reset this noise because it may be that, yes, there was reverb on it. So we can turn it down, see what we've got left. This is a really handy area for preset deconstruction stuff because it's basically all the sounds, so we can mute them. So, oh, right, so that was doing quite a lot of the work as well. And as we can see, oscillators 1 and 2 aren't loaded with anything, so that muted changes nothing. And we've just got a sine here, and I expect we'll be able to go over to the modulation area here and see some target modulations, which of course we can. Now we've got 2 here. Let me just make sure there's nothing on the other page. So we've got 3 target modulations for that particular muffled sine sound. It's also being filtered as well, as you can see. Turn that off. Not much difference. Put it back on that. That probably affects more the filter of the filters the noise more than this little low pitched sine wave. But let's look at what these modulations do. We've got an LFO here, which is LFO2. That's set to noise, so that's just doing that. At extreme settings, this. That's quite nice, isn't it? Nice. Sine to noise, very nice. What else have we got going on here? We've got an LFO, we've got LFO1 as well, so let's look at LFO1. Interesting use of an LFO. This is one of the unique features of this synthesizer, is the ability to change the form of the LFO from an LFO to an envelope. We've got here, there's some of the ones that end in stop can be used as envelope generators, which is very handy. So what's going on here? We've got it's running quite fast, and it's pitching again the sine wave in 3 and 4. So let's just turn that up. There we go. You can hear what that's doing now. Put back down to wherever it was there somewhere. We've also got this setting here, which is the note value against the pitch. And this is basically reducing the range. This is kind of taking away frequency depth. And so if this was in the middle, then it would not have any effect. If we turned it up, then the sine waves would get further apart, because we're telling the engine to add kind of more frequencies to the notes as we play them. What we're doing here is taking the frequency, taking the kind of note information away, so it's a smaller range. I can probably demonstrate that. Yeah, so this is a whole octave. That's a low C, that's a high C. That's like a minor third or something, but I'm playing a low C and a high C. So the whole range of the sine wave's been reduced to quite a small range, no matter where you are on the keyboard. Very handy. And we've also got this modulation wheel setting here, which is affecting the mix 5, which is the volume of the noise. So let's turn the noise back on again and just play around with the modulation wheel. Modulation wheel on full. Modulation wheel on minimum. So that's a good subtle, but all these things add up to interesting sounds. And we've also got a very small amount of, if anything, velocity on the cutoff. Let me see, is there anything on there at all? I don't think there was. I think it was on 0. Yeah, it's on 0. Oh, 0.2. But there, that's all you need to make a snare sound. Very nice. Oh, we've got this filter here, which is a low pass 6 decibel. Is that what I had it on? Let's just reset that. Yeah, that's what it was. So there you go, there's a snare sound. '80s. So let's have a look next at this. I mean, it's a clap, even though it's called cheap snare. It's definitely a clap sound, right? This is an interesting clap sound. Look at all these crazy layers here. All we can hear really is noise. So let's just turn the noise down, because here's the noise. So what have we got? Interesting kind of staticiness. Let's see where we're going. Right, so we've got a little bit of... Let's turn the FX mix down, just to get the oscillators themselves. They seem to both be doing stuff, so let's just turn one down. Oh, that's a little bit of interestingness there. And what's this one? That's more kind of noisy, which would make sense because there's a phase modulation function here that sets a noise on, and it's on maximum. So if we turn that down, what do we get? Kind of, it's more tonal, but it is like a complex bit of a drum sound being FM'd by a sine wave and being mixed with another waveform in the engine's alternate function. Let's see if we just do another one. Very different. It doesn't help that everything turns to noise when we've got that up anyway. Oh. Oh, that's nice. Might use that. But if we go back to alternate, and yeah, that's that bit of the sound. It just seems to be running from one part of the drum loop, maybe like a kick or something. Let's turn that up, see what happens when we increase. It's subtle because it's all being messed around by that. So that's minimum. Oh, it's only subtle. It's so subtle. I think that's doing the most damage to the sound, isn't it? So we've got that, but we've also got that noise as well. It's all part of the operation. Again, that's connected to this mod wheel modulation source configuration, which is affecting the volume of this noise. Probably doesn't need to be that loud. I'm going to turn it down here. But together, there's something else going on in that noise. There's a little bit of body to it. Let's just see if we turn. I mean, that's so barely there. I mean, it's a subtle part of the sound, but it's definitely there. Let's have a look over here briefly at the modulation matrix and just observe. I think it's quite similar to the original snare one. Well, the mod wheel, as we've already looked at, turning up the noise. We've got a very small velocity to cut off kind of configuration setup, modulation setup. LFO1, again, that will be a pitch drop, an envelope form, which is adjusting the pitch of 3 and 4 of this one, which isn't doing much because it's mostly noise, as we've heard. We've also got this reverse, this inverted kind of configuration, so that the range of the sine wave that's being played as part of that snare is compressed, so it doesn't go full high notes and full low notes. It kind of keeps itself in the middle of like a normal snare range almost. Kind of handy. And we've got LFO2. What's that doing? That's doing the noise on pitch 3 and 4 again. Subtle, but it's got a nice thwack to it, hasn't it, that? Right, let's see what else we've got. A hat. This is interesting. Now we've got the ARP doing a lot of work here. Obviously I'm just holding a note down, you can see. But what? Is there any more to this? Any more to this sound? Let's have a look at the oscillators here. We've got nothing. Let's just turn the effects down. What we've got, a bit of reverb going into a bit of ping pong with a parallel routing. As you can see up here, it tells you the condition of the switch, the status of the switch. So we're doing, these are both going into the equalizer separately rather than in serial. So rather than reverb going into the delay, the sound's going into both and going into the equalizer out of this filter. So, but where's the noise coming from? There's no noise coming out of these oscillators. So it's all this oscillator 5 doing the work, which is playing back a metallic sample. Sounds like if I turn loop on, there's some clicking that gets avoided. I guess it's the end of the noise. But that's handy to be able to get rid of that. Let's have a look. Let's just make sure. Only one page of modulations. Yes. What have we got? Modulation wheel doing drive. Makes it a bit, just adds a bit of body weight to it. Just a subtle little amount. And it also turns up, as it would seem, the volume of oscillator 5. That's what that one is going to do. Well, LFO is touching the cutoff. So LFO1, let's see what LFO1 is. Again, it's an envelope. And let's just see what happens if we turn it up. Ultimately, it sounds like it's softening the beginning of the curve. Yeah, it's just softening the sound of the initial hit of a hi-hat, so it doesn't sound so spiky. And we've got this other LFO here that's doing volume stuff. Let's see what that's doing. Another kind of envelope setting rather than a true LFO. So let's just put it back to 0. Kind of takes away a bit of the dynamism, doesn't it? I mean, after all, it is an LFO affecting the volume, so it's sharpening up the beginning of it volume-wise and then dulling it with this cut-off matrix setting here. Interesting. And we've got a little bit of reverb and ping-pong as well. We can get rid of that and hear the sound in all its rawness. Let's put it back again. Okay. Nice. Right. Let's see what we've got here. Just have a look here. We've got a little crash. How complex is this? You'd think it'd be fairly simple. And look, yes, it's lovely and simple. No modulations set up. Or only the basic ones used, if any. I'm looking. I can see a filter set up. Not doing much. This send function means that the filter isn't actually moving at all. It's just static, and it's in a kind of phaser shape, and you can hear that. But we set it back to the original form, the original position for the patch, and also look down here. And we can see just a noise metallic sound. That's it. Very mildly key tracked, not much at all. That's a really nice basic sound. Let's just, I was wondering where. So yeah, that's there's the reverb isn't really doing much work there. And the unison mode's on full. You can hear its width. If we put this back on 1, you'll hear that's just one version of the sound in the middle, 2 stereo. You can hear it's doing more. So that's the crash cymbal. Let's move on now away from percussion noises to bass noises, or to synthesizer noises, and just look at how you can use the uniqueness of the synthesizer to get some interesting noises. So let's that's a nice. There's something rubbery and weird about these bass noises, isn't it? It's so like unmoogy. It's nothing like serum. It's very, very strange, but it's very interesting at the same time. So let's have a look at this patch. What we've got here. FX mix is on 0, so anything on there? Oh no, you can see these are empty. So we've got no effects. There's a very fierce filter thing happening here. We can see that this envelope here. Nice. So basic setting up on here. We've got key tracking and a bit of, well, that's the send, isn't it, to the actual filter frequency itself. No distortion, no internal effects running. So what do we have? We've got 2 saw waves over here, and there's no movement going on. There's no modifying going on, apart from this one phase modulation here, which is called multi-slow. So I want to turn this down. Let's have a look at what's going on here. First of all, we've just got one of the oscillators is doing a low octave. One of them is doing a high octave. So let's look at the low one first and just reduce the multi-slow. And that sounds more like a normal saw wave, digital saw wave. It's got some interesting properties, hasn't it? But as soon as we do this to it, we get this extra bits of noise and this kind of blurring of the sound. Oh, sounds so strange and weird. I love it. Let's put the other one on. Just a normal saw wave, that's it. But then doing that kind of does a weird kind of slowness to it. Kind of blurs the wave in this strange psychedelic way. So it's just basically that crazy, weird, like saw affected sound going into this filter. And that's it, really basic. I mean, not too dissimilar from many basses over the years. Oscillator going into a filter, out. Let's just see what we've got going on in the modulation matrix over here. We've got a couple of things. So we've got, let's just start where we are familiar. So we've got LFO3 doing some fine tuning of oscillator 3 and 4. So let's exaggerate that. That's huge, don't need it that big. It's just subtle detuning to make it sound interesting. Mod wheel to cut off, that should reduce it. Because it's set minus. Interesting, I like that. And we've got LFO3 kind of similarly affecting the fine tune of 1 and 2. So this is going minus. There we go. No one wants basses like that, so we keep that modulation small. And we've also got some interesting things here. We've got note tracking to resonance. So it's only very subtle, but like you can see, it's barely off 0, but it's definitely into the minus territory. And what that'll do is increase the resonance on higher notes and reduce it on lower notes, which is only very small and won't be big at all, but it'll add a bit of movement and change to the sound. We've also got one other setting here, which is mod wheel to SP depth, and this is the spirit mode depth. SP is spirit, and it looks like, even though that says it's doing something, there's nothing set in the spirit mode. Let's just make sure. We reset the patch. Yeah, nothing. This is a handy little switch here, actually, to reset the patch to the original state of the loaded patch. Very handy, especially for this kind of exercise. So yeah, that's it. Oh, we've got one other thing here, aux envelope, which is, you know, these two envelopes here. This first envelope is what's being described as modulating matrix position 2, which is this one. So this is modulating the depth of this. So it's kind of on every note it's going down, but because it's such a small, I mean that's quite big. Oh, you can hear it doing something a bit more now. But yeah, that adds a little bit of more kind of detuning niceness into the sound, so it doesn't sound so static. Right, that's a nice patch. That I think I've used this so much as a bass noise. It's so nice, basic but beautiful. Ooh, lovely. Let's just put that back to maybe halfway. Right, what have we got now? The bells. So this sounds complex. There's lots of layers and stuff going on here. So let's see what we've got to start with. We'll start with the effects chain. So that's just a ping pong going into reverb, a ping pong delay going into a reverb. The mixes are right over on this, so barely any of the original signals getting through. It's only the ping pong delay. And we've also got, well, that's going into a reverb with not such a heavy mix on the reverb. Let's turn it off. Oh, I just noticed as well, we do have the equalizer doing not a lot of work, but look, the low frequency set quite high, and the high frequency set a little bit high as well, which gives it kind of a smiley, EQ smiley sound, which we like, especially from the 80s. We like smiley sounds, smiley EQs. So let's turn all the effects off and see what we've got here. Turn off the sample. Oh, let's just see what that sounds like. So it's key tracked. We can see the key tracking here is set to maximum. And it is just a tiny little bit of noise being played back. Let's drop the octave a few maybe. Seems to be a different pitch to the other oscillators, isn't it? Let's pull that down. It's kind of adding like a harmonic, interesting harmonic content. Bells often have kind of inharmonic content in the higher realms, in the higher frequencies, and the higher harmonics. So this is just adding a little bit of complexity. If we take it off, it's kind of boring. It's adding something, right? So what else have we got? What's oscillator 3 and 4 doing? Are they similar? Oh, okay, so 1. Oh yeah, see we've got this useful modifier example here. This is the actual patch, which is stopping the sound. You can see if I turn this up, if I turn it down completely, the sound rings forever, according to the release stage in the amplifier department. But if we increase this, it's muting the sound. You can see the little partials getting updated here. Now that's really short. We've also got this time echo function, which is pretty mad. Let's just see what happens if we turn that down. So it's like a built-in echo, built-in delay. I love... This is great, isn't it? You can speed it up, put it on maximum. You can sort of hear the repetition of the partials, can't you? You can hear that it's doing something repetitive. Lovely. And we've just got no wave there, combining nothing, no phase modulation. So that's that bit of the sound. That's them together. Let's have a look at this. This feels a lot richer. Yeah, look at this. So we've got an absolute function. Right down here. I'm just going to disable that for the moment. I mean, an absolute function in my mind is going to turn all the... actually, we can look in the manual. Let's have a look at the manual. Handy manuals. Let's... it will be... absolute. Maybe if we... wave shape, here we go. So it... wave shaping mirrors waveform in amplitude and adds harmonics. So it's a wave shaper, as the other ones after it describe as well. But sonically, it's kind of thinning it out a bit, right? It's thinner than it was without it. We've also got this beautiful super saw function. Let's just turn that down. Oh, there you go. And the sound you can hear is less moving, less emotional. It's crazy modifiers, aren't they? They're just like... I've never seen anything like them. But yeah, so that adds interesting bits of colour to that bit of the sound. And then we've got... Let's just let's reset. Oh! Now just have a quick look down here. What have we got? We've got... I can see an aftertouch function here, so let's just see what that does. It may have not much effect. Let's see. It says it's on sine 64, which is like noise, and we'll make it sound different. What we've got here, we've got velocity attached to the mix of 1 and 2. So it's basically the louder we hit, currently it's normally mix 1 and 2, oscillator 1 and 2 is on 0. So the velocity is entirely describing how loud that oscillator is going to be. But oscillators 3 and 4 and 5 are just responding to normal velocity stuff, like as set up in this part of the amplitude envelope. What we've got is we've got a mod wheel doing a reverse cutoff, so that will just be... Well, that's a bit low, isn't it? Yeah. So we open up the mod wheel back again, because this is mod wheel max. This is mod wheel minimum. So that's doing like an inverse job. We've also got this aftertouch doing spirit depth. So I'm going to press a note here and see if we can hear. There's a little bit of extra. Can you hear that? So just press the note down. No aftertouch. Here we go, aftertouch. And then I'm turning it back off again, or just like releasing the key. So that's subtle, but it all adds up to an interesting sound. That's pretty much that sound, isn't it? We've just got basic unison mode down here doing a little bit of spread, and no feedback on the delay. So that's that sound. It's very nice. Let's go to this interesting ARP. If you can see, I'm only playing one note at a time, but somehow it's creating more notes from that single note. This is the usefulness of the auto chord function. If I just turn it off, we're just going to get one note. Octaves. As it says here, up 2 octaves. But this, I mean, I played this thing that I've written quickly is in kind of F. So there's a B flat in it. But it seems to be okay with... So this is like a D minor. And then this is like a B flat chord. But it seems to be, as you can see, I'm hitting the B flat here. But it seems to be happy to make notes that are related to the chord sequence. If it's related to this key of the track. Let's just see what other chords sound like. So there's little steps and things, little bits of movement. Little repeat there. What we got here? Let's do a kind of back down, run up, and then start a bit lower, run up, start a bit lower again. Yeah, so there's a good variety of opportunities to just create automatic arpeggio patterns in this without even specifying which notes you want to play. Very handy. Turn it off if you want to do complex chords. Otherwise, it's going to go mad. Yeah, so that's how the notes are being triggered in the first place. Let's look at the rest of the sound. So what have we got here? What are the effects doing? Oh, okay, we've got an ensemble that's on mixed heavy. This is on parallel routing again, as you can see. So we've got both of these going into the equalizer separately rather than this into the reverb. So we've got an ensemble that's completely wet, and we've got a bit of a reverb small room with a large size. And you'll hear this disappear as soon as we put this. There we go. So what's this sound? What's going on in the sound? Let's have a listen. So from that we can determine oscillator 5 is doing nothing. This is oscillator 3 and 4. It's a bit grungy, isn't it? And this is really clean. This is, as you wouldn't be surprised, this is an organ sound. In fact, they're both organ sounds, and there's kind of flutes embedded into this one in a small way. Let's just turn off this crossfade and see what happens if we just only have the organ. Right, as well. The actual arpeggio settings for this were not tracked to the song. It was kind of doing its own free, cool thing, but obviously I want it locked to the beat. So let's just go back to this again, turn the effects down. Crossfade 1 and 2. There's a small difference, isn't there? And you can see harmonically this changing down here. It's very subtle. If we try a different... you can hear the flute. So this is what the flute sounds like. Again, together. It's very subtle. But it adds something to the sound. The sound designer thought, yes, this is working. We've also got this knob here, which is not on 0. It wasn't on absolute 0. But with partials this few, I doubt this is doing much at all. Can't really hear it doing much. So let's see what this one's doing. So this is the same kind of sounds, like an organ sound and a flute sound, but this is going through this grunge setting, which is like adding harmonics and shifting the sound around. And also we've got no combine here, so the flute sound's ultimately redundant when listening to one here. We've got this phase mod here, see what's going on here if we turn that up. Sounds like a kind of vibrato, like a rotary. It's very fast moving vibrato, isn't it? But down at these kind of settings you can't really hear it. At these kind of settings it's not really audible. And let's have a look at the modulation matrix, because that will be doing something. Let's make sure there's nothing on 2. Oh look, there is one on 2. Let's see. So we've got flip-flop doing the pan, and what that basically means is a flip-flop function is flipping between, say, 0 or 1 and 2, just back and forth, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, every time a new note, every time a new key is pressed. So that means it's flipping the pan of every single of every kind of note that happens from the arpeggiator, I would have thought, actually. So each of the notes generated by the arpeggiator is going to be panned separately, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. On page 1, it's interesting that was put on page 2. It doesn't make any difference, I'm sure. On page 1, what do we have? We have step LFO doing an octave function, and also step LFO doing another octave function on each of these oscillators. So let's play it and see what happens when we turn them down. Not much. I mean, if we look at what's going on here, it's using the step LFO here. We can speed it up, so it's not actually getting to any point of this LFO that's telling the octave knob in each of these oscillators to switch. We're just not getting there fast enough because we've got it running at 16 steps. And I think the sound sounds like it's running at like eighths. Digga, 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 digga. I know it is 16ths, but it's just not, yeah, so we're only really, this just isn't allowed, it's not getting to step any further through it. I bet if we change this to song sync, it'll go mad. There we go. It's kind of funny. It sounds like one of those crystallizer sound toys. Pitch alteration in a feedback loop. But yeah, so it's not moving. It's not really affecting these. So it's a funny configuration. But these are what happens when you're doing sound design. Redundant, possibly redundant configurations. But we've got mod wheel set up here to adjust the phase modulation. So I'm going to turn that up. Ah, you can hear that. We don't want that. We want it nice and clean. We want it clean. Interesting though. So that's that whole sound. Let's just put it back to... I'm going to reset it and have to put this back to 4. Nice. And we've got another final sound here. Don't worry, this will all be over very, very soon. But this nice pad. So let's have a look at this. What's going on here? We've got only one page of modulation matrix. That's what we like. Okay, so let's start with the effects chain. We have an ensemble that's kind of half mixed, going into a reverb with a bit of pre-delay. As you can see, this is set to serial, so it's coming out of the envelope, the volume envelope, directly into this, directly into that, directly into the EQ, and then no feedback on the delay. So we'll turn them down because we know what effects sound like when we can hear what difference they make to the sound. I mean, you can see as well, what I also noticed was by turning this down, the EQ is also part of that effects mix. Obviously, it's part of the effects chain. And we've got the low is taking away a lot of energy from the low end, probably for good reason. As you can see, when we let it go, there's quite a lot of low frequency content there you probably wouldn't want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep that there. I'm going to reset. I'm just going to turn the mixes down so we can hear the raw sound. Right, so let's have a look. Where do we start? Oh, so let's have a look at the oscillator 5. There's nothing in there, so we can... Obviously, this is a pad sound. There's not going to be many samples being triggered or noises happening. It's a smooth pad. But what is this smooth pad made of? Let's just turn down... Oh, that was interesting. Why didn't that... Oh, interesting. So, mix 3, 4. I'm just bandying around looking at what's going on here because there's no noise coming out of here. Should sound like that, but it's set to nothing because we have the mix setting here for 3 and 4, which is what this oscillator is, set to only be turned up by the mod wheel. So, if we turn the mod wheel up, in comes the sound. So let's just turn that back on and turn this up to see what gets added. I mean, we know what's going to get added, but how will it affect? Turn it down. It's adding that little shiny part of the sound, like a cleanliness. Let's turn it off again then. And have a look at quickly why this sound is so nice and warm. Oh, that's already muted because we've cut the mod wheel down. Also, the module was affecting the resonance of the filter, I've just noticed. Oh yeah, so if we mute that. Okay, so this is kind of has a certain space in the sonic, in the kind of sonic spectra. And if I turn the modulation wheel up, you can hear the resonance doing more work. Off. Up. It's very subtle, but this is what a lot of this kind of sound design stuff is. It's subtle work. So put that back to 0 again. Oh, I can also see the pitch wheel here is doing something with the spirit mode. So let's just listen to that. Oh, dirt. Oh, I'm not sure I'd ever use that. But that's part of the sound. It's also got velocities affecting the resonance as well, which is kind of not unusual. And we've also got LFO1 and LFO2 flinging the sound around from left to right. And LFO1's flinging the sound around, and LFO2 is adjusting the cutoff. So what have we got these set to? LFO2, LFO1 are both set to like regular LFO duties, which is what we like. Very slow. Look how slow these are. 0.1 of a hertz. Let's just there we go. You can hear that doing far more work than it should be doing. Let's just pull that back to somewhere nice. But the sound itself, it's very basic, isn't it? This is just 2 saw waves, not modified. No idea why we're crossfading. Shouldn't be any difference really. And you can see the spectra itself doesn't change. The visual representation of the harmonic content isn't adjusted at all, so you can see. So that pulsing you can hear is the speed of the morph mode going backwards and forwards. This visualization doesn't quite capture the speed, it's going backwards and forth, but you can see the harmonic content different. It's like starts and ends in a different condition. So this speed function here is describing how quickly this morph mode is running across that sound. I can right slow it down. I can right slow it down. Like this. But we can speed it up as well. Isn't that interesting? It's just such a crazy oscillator. Crazy harmonic content, kind of DSP stuff. And I think that's that. Did we turn the effects down? Oh, let's just reset the patch. Yes. But you can very clearly hear. I can hear the ensemble doing its thing. Kind of. It's like a chorus with. A chorus is usually one single kind of modulation affecting a load of delay lines at the same time, and ensembles tend to be a couple of maybe one single delay line being, or a number of delay lines, but being affected by more than one LFO. So there'll be usually a slow LFO that's adjusting it like a normal chorus, and a slightly faster LFO that will be adding a different kind of movement into the sound, into the delay lines. So I can very clearly hear that ensemble sound. But yeah, that is my preset deconstruction of some Gladiator patches. I hope you learned something from it, because I think I probably did. I just keep forgetting how good this synth is. There's nothing else quite like it. Maybe some of his other synthesizers use this technology as well. I know that Warlock, which is a recent new synth, definitely uses harmonic content morphing. And Warlock, I think, is the kind of newer version of the original synth that used this technology called Firebird. And that's why I had many years ago. It was lovely. I made so many cool songs with it. It had such a beautiful sound. And I mean, this is basically that, but far more complicated. And Warlock, which is this slightly cut down, it's like a new version of Firebird, is a beautiful synth as well. Powerful, simple, crazy sounds out of it. Go and have a look. Try it out. In the meantime, you should definitely try and buy Gladiator, because you won't get sounds like this on any other synthesizer. Enjoy. I'm going to just play this little... just to make sure it didn't sound too mind-bogglingly difficult or strange. Those pads are too loud. Nice. Thank you for attending this preset deconstruction session, and I look forward to discussions about this synthesizer. This is all coming out of Gladiator. It's beautiful. That bass, that weird bass with the blurred saw waves, absolutely insane. Okay, and I'll leave you with this gentle mellowness. Thank you for coming. Have a lovely day, you people out there.